This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Good afternoon, Bill King. How are you today?
Hey, boys. How you doing?
Doing good. Picking up the pieces of Arkansas losing to BYU and facing what looks like a pretty good LSU team that's picked their pieces up after the season opening loss to Florida State. Hogs having a little trouble on the offensive line these days, Bill, which feels like a surprise because of Sam Pittman's background.
Yeah, that game, good start, 14-0, and outgained them significantly in the matchup. Bunch of penalties, which was ugly, but and not having a NFL running back lining up for you hurts too, and that's what's missing.
Yeah, you got to learn from it, Bill. I think that was a game where if Arkansas plays BYU 10 times, I think we win 8 of them, and it's just we didn't take advantage when we had chances. And you get up 14-0, sometimes you think it's a little easier than what it is. That being said, I still think LSU. I know they lost to Florida State week 1. I think LSU's a real team, a top 5, top 7 type team. How do you see that going? You give the Hogs any chance?
I think LSU at the moment is probably the favorite to win it again in the West. They played. Now, Mississippi State doesn't have 1 through 85, but they've got some dudes, and LSU dominated them in any way you want to categorize it. And I don't think a receiver in the league's playing better than Neighbors. He had 10, 11 catches first half in that matchup. They're running the ball well with the Notre Dame transfer, and they've also got a freshman that's going to be their star. Daniels is playing fantastic. The defense has solidified some. It's going to be a tough matchup. Very difficult.
It looks to me like Daniels is an improved quarterback from what I saw last year.
Yeah.
A lot of it might have to do, though, with your receivers, because Neighbors is a pretty special quarterback. It looks like they've got a really good connection.
Neighbors is what Keishawn Butte should have been.
Yeah.
Before he decided being a diva is more important than being good, right? Once you make that decision, things don't go well for you. He's not guardable one-on-one, and he's a threat up over the top. He's a threat underneath. He's a threat to take it after he catches it. He's versatile, and they're balanced. I mean, that's a balanced team, a very, very balanced team, and Arkansas is going to have to play their best to be in that game.
One of the surprises of last week, I guess it shouldn't be that much of a surprise, the Tennessee-Florida game. It's always hard to win on the road. That being said, Tennessee or Florida, which one of those teams ends the season with more conference victories?
That was a total collapse by the Vols physically. They got whooped any which way you want. Defensive line to O-line, O-line to D-line. ATN, the running back, ran up and down the field. Tennessee's defense at times looked like there was no effort. It was a very confusing loss for the Vols. And not a woulda, shoulda, coulda loss either. Clearly, the better team won the game, which was shocking. I think Tennessee probably will have more wins. I think their schedule is more conducive. It's tough now. They still have Georgia. They still have Alabama. Still have A&M. Tough teams, but I think theirs is probably more conducive. They've also got Joe Milton at quarterback, who is playing decent, but they have a superstar sitting there waiting, and I think you have to give him a chance. I don't know that they will, but that's a spark they could use.
Bill, this game on Saturday with Ole Miss and Alabama is going to be, I think, really interesting because you got an Ole Miss team whose offense is rolling, but Quinshon Judkins has really not done very much. Jackson Dart's playing out of his mind. He's running. He's throwing really well. And then there's the situation with Alabama in which do you think Nick Saban used the game for South Florida as kind of like an experiment to see if maybe Buckner or Simpson would have worked with that offense? And obviously they didn't, so he's back to Milroe.
I think they are foundationally fractured. And, guys, we've gone through all the reasons, but they've done nothing to prove otherwise. Now, the quarterback politics. Milroe, I think, was a little bit of a problem last week through a fit. I think he was probably suspended because there's no way you take those two quarterbacks the way they played, leave them in the entire time, and not make a change. Because as much as we want to critique Milroe, and he's very flawed, he's better than those other two. At least to date he is. And that's why they've already announced he didn't play. Now think about this. Is this not suspicious? Didn't play a down in Tampa, but he's going to start, and we've endorsed him for the Ole Miss game. So obviously things went down last week. And we'll find out. He is dynamic as an athlete, as you guys saw last year, kind of his debut doing that against Arkansas. Ole Miss is a more well-rounded team right now. And the game is in T-Town. I think it's about a 7-point spread. Alabama, that's a little funny, too. And you're right, Quinshon Judkins. Now, he's had a couple little nagging injuries, but he has not had the follow-through from a year ago. A lot of times that'll happen after a freshman is a huge first year. That second year sometimes can be tough, and maybe that's what we're watching.
Bill, fun slate of football games going on this Saturday. No, none other than, I think, that Ohio State-Notre Dame game. How do you see that one going?
Notre Dame, I think, for the first time in 20 years, belongs in a game like this as it being a fair fight. I don't think they win because I just think those receivers, and Kyle McCord's really starting to play well, their new quarterback at Ohio State. That's the best receiving corps in America. And even though Notre Dame has really done well recruiting on the back end of that defense, that's a tough matchup for anybody. And Notre Dame's not real athletic getting to the quarterback. So I think it's going to be a good game. Ohio State's going to win, probably somewhere around 10 points in South Bend. Notre Dame will play well. I just don't think they're there. Yeah, I think Notre Dame's top 10 to 12 good, not top 3 good.
What do you make of Washington? I know they got Cal this weekend, but, I mean, they've blown 3 opponents out. Michael Penix looks potentially like he could be one of the 2-3 best quarterbacks in the country. I know they got Cal, then Arizona, and then Oregon, which will really kind of tell you a lot about them. But, I mean, this is a team that's ranked 8th right now and kind of rolling and blowing everybody out.
DeBoer is a very good head coach. I mean, a fantastic head coach. They've got Michael Penix, and they have 2 first-round wide receivers, 2 receivers who are going to go in the next draft in the first round. They are very dynamic. They're very fundamental. They're solid. They could be your Pac-12 champs. This is a threat. This is a playoff threat team, I do believe, as we continue to go through it. I think they're legit. I think what you're seeing is real. Your eyes are not deceiving you.
You got this Auburn A&M matchup, which I think is sneaky good. You can only beat the teams in front of you. And Auburn's 3-0, A&M's 2-1 going into that game. Any chance that the War Eagles go in there and can get a victory?
I don't think they win. I wouldn't be surprised to see them play well. Let me give you the politics of this game. Hugh Freeze cannot stand Ross Bjork, who was the AD at A&M. He was the AD at Ole Miss when everything went down. This is personal. This is incredibly personal for Hugh Freeze. If you asked him, hey, Hugh, what would be the one game if you could have it? This year it probably wouldn't be Alabama. Probably the Aggies. Cannot stand that guy. Having said that, that A&M offense is clicking under Bobby Petrino, and I can see it getting better and better. That young quarterback they have is a very gifted young quarterback, Connor Wegman. They've got weapons around him. Now, they did get out-athleted their defense down at Miami. I think that's a tough matchup for Auburn now. I think Auburn will get to the point where they can win that kind of game. I don't think they're there today.
How about Mizzou? This is a pretty big – that might have been the biggest win for the SEC last weekend. You know, the walk-off field goal with the win over Kansas State. And, I mean, Kansas State, sometimes it feels like they're bland, but those are the defending Big 12 champs. It's a good team right now. And, man, I mean, Eli got a little lucky because of the delay of game, and then Meebus kicks what I thought would have been good from 70 yards out. But they're 3-0.
That was 61 yards, and the camera angle from behind. So I kept waiting for that thing to die right in the end zone, right? Because it wasn't a real elevated kick, which I guess couldn't be if you're going to kick from that distance. But that thing, man, it cleared. It cleared solidly. What a way to get out of there. A record field goal to beat a very good Kansas. Kansas State's a very good program, guys. Very well-coached team as well. And those are names you're going to be hearing for coaching jobs here in the next few years.
Bill, your listenership, is made up of people who I think have been following this sport for decades. You know, people that are really kind of entrenched in the tradition and the traditions of college football and their teams. I think it feels right now like there's an America's team in college football, and it's the Colorado Buffaloes. 9 million people watching them play against Colorado State is amazing, and they're getting more talk than a lot of NFL teams are. There's more money being placed on Buffs games than NFL games. How have your listeners and the folks who text and call your show reacted to the story of Colorado football this year?
And it's one name. It's Deion Sanders. That's what everybody's tuning in for. And the presentation from his team and his son, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, who just got hurt. My audience doesn't like Deion and I like Deion, so they don't agree with me. They don't like him, first of all, because he's turned his back, they think, on Florida State. He said rude things about him. He claims to not even be affiliated really with them anymore. He graduated from a different college. He feels shunned because they never interviewed him in some of the last few hires, which he was in high school. I don't blame them. And Florida fans obviously aren't going to like him because he played at Florida State, even though he doesn't claim Florida State much. So this audience, I think, is fractured, but there's a good section of them that, even though they know Deion is doing a heck of a job, they're not going to like him.
You know, here in Arkansas, Bill, I'm pretty sure that when Sam Pittman was hired, that Deion also interviewed for the job. There have been reports about that, and so you know what it's like, hindsight and everything, and coming off a loss to BYU and troubles on the offensive line. There are some folks, and it's all on social media. There's a couple people that have texted into our show about this too, and they're all like, "Well, we could have gotten Deion." And you're like, transport yourself to 2019 when the interviews were going down and try to not look at it through the hindsight of that. How do you approach that conversation?
I think what happened with Colorado just being a godforsaken program, and Rick George, again, I told you, I've known him since he was Jared Donato's recruiting coordinator in the early 90s at Vanderbilt. Thinking outside the box and saying we can go hire the next dude and go 1-11 again, or go way outside the box and do something nobody else would do. I don't blame whoever interviewed him to date for not hiring him, but now you're going to have to. Well, or you're going to have to think about it. Guys, can you imagine me with all my years looking at recruits and recruiting and all that? His brand recognition now in recruiting and in the transfer portal will rival what Alabama or any other team, Ohio State, Georgia, can do. That's what kind of monster brand he is. It's going to be fun to track. It's going to be fun to see how long he sticks around there, because a lot more money is going to be coming his way. And his son's going to go pro, I would assume. His quarterback son.
Well, you know, Deion's respected, and he's a leader, Bill, and I think he speaks the same language, and I think that's to his advantage.
Yep. The kids love him. Mm-hmm. They love him. He makes it personal. You got to remember, guys, Deion does not give a rip what any other fan base, some message board, a talk show. He doesn't care what anybody thinks about in those categories. He doesn't care. He knows his brand is unique. He knows his brand is superior, and the players love it because he has their back. It could be somebody just looking at you wrong, and he's going to make it personal, and they buy into it. Now, guys, they get Oregon, which is going to be brutal, in Eugene, and then they come home to Southern Cal. So they're going to get a little bit of humble pie, too, here soon.
BetOnline is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.